Hi, this is Imagination. We are going to talk about the vector, abuse, the oligarchy, and the aristocracy, where all this comes from. There's a lot of what happened, how, why, and then there's a what you need to do about this. So we're going to start here with what you need to do about this and what this is. So bottom line is abusers have had one massive ace card that they play all the time, every time. And the game that they play, it's a compound. It's a compound abuse. This is really important that you understand it. When there's basically two types of people. There is a simple abuser and then a complex abuser. You must understand this grouping. Simple abusers are people who are actually very ethical and they're ethical fighters. They're ethical people who are in self-defense. These are your simple fighters. These are the people who are clean, they're honorable, they're ethical about their fights. When they get into conflict, they do tit for tat strategy. They are on equal ground. They try and respect their opponent. Okay? This is simple conflict. Your compound fighters is where we have a problem. The compound fighter is your abuser. This is your unethical. These are people who are not about ethics. They are about winning. And this is a huge, huge part of it. This is all about the game, follow the leader. This is literally a weaponized version of follow the leader. All abuse, all abuse, 100%. This is the mother lode of all groups and categories is follow the leader. So basically, what they're doing is they want to be the leader. They want to be in charge. These are your line pushers. Get in line. Everyone shoves to the front who are the compound. Those are your compound abusers. Teachers really need to use this as a tool to say, all right, go get in line. All the compound abusers, if you're a compound fighter at age 10, that's a red flag, a huge red flag. So right there is, okay, let's go ahead and get them into treatment now. That's exactly it. Is that will do a lot to show you. And those are the kids who are being abused at home. Those are the kids who are being abused at home. That's why they're like that. Compound abuse. So what you really want to do is when you are a simple fighter, when you are a simple abuser, or well, that's it exactly, simple abuse. You end up hurting other people. You don't want to, and you feel bad about it afterward because you're human. But when you switch over, it basically is when your brain gets rewired. It's trauma rewiring so that your autonomic nervous system gets rewired to access a different code of your DNA, and it reawakens a previous DNA code, most likely your insect brain. So now it becomes, I want to be the leader. And it's if I'm the leader, then I get to control the situation. I don't want to say control. Let's use the word manipulate because that's the truth. If you are the leader, you get to manipulate. So they want the manipulation advantage. That's really what this is about, is the manipulator's advantage. So the manipulator's vantage is only works if you think they are better than you. That's all. This is it. This is it right here. If you think they are better, game over. Game over. The moment you realize they're better. Now, we have Mother Nature's program inside of us, and this is our problem. It's not really a problem, but this is what's going on. Inside of our brains, we have a follow the leader code. The follow the leader code is not our sheep code. The follow the leader code is not our mimicking. What that is our apprentice mode. So when we are apprentices, this is literally weaponized education. That's what this is. So when you have an apprentice, the very first stage of your learning and education is a mimic, mirror, repetition response. Babies do this. Every human goes through this. Every time you become an apprentice of anything, you have to begin with mimic, mirror, repetition response. So the first thing you want to do is set an archetype. That is exactly what you want to do. The role model or the archetype defines what you're supposed to role model. This is your what would Jesus do stuff. That's what it is. So when you're an apprentice, you want a role model, you mimic the role model, and then you shape your behavior. Now, once you get into tradesmen, you're 50-50. When you get into tradesmen, you have 50% role model, 50% authority, authorship, because you're authoring your own life. But once you get out of tradesmen, that's when you are 100% independent. You're not independent until you are a master. And this is where we have a problem. what ended up happening was the Roman Empire ended up weaponizing education around 380 BCE. They launched a war against education and they overturned the entire educational system. Now, that took 800 years to accomplish, and then 2,000 years of manipulating and passing it down. This is generational trauma, passing down this abuser's code for 2,000 years. Now we're here where we are today. Now, any kind of a lie like this, any lie, all lies, have an expiration date, and the expiration date is 2,000 years, which just ended. It ended on January 21st, 2025. That was when all the planets aligned. It was the end of the clock, coming to the end of its song. There were 6 different natural planetary, not just planets. It was six codes all that same time, ending at the same day. Same day. I tracked all the codes. It was extraordinary to watch because you got to see all 6 of them, not just the planets, all 6 of the codes. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And it all ended on that day. So 2,000 years away. So after it ended, that's the end of the song. Now, everything that's on the lie vector is coming down. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The way they did this, how they did it, was 2,000 years ago, they had access to something called Magian. That is an academic discipline that Pythagoras and Plato and Aristotle had access to. It's the one I have. So when they had Magian, they understood all of this. They understood how it worked. They understood all of the physics. And that is what all of their work was built on, based on. Their work, Magian, is what taught Jesus. Now, while that's all going on, you had the Roman Empire rising in power. The Roman Empire saw all of this, and that was around the time that Plato composed his composition called the Republic. Now, in the Republic, Plato explains that the ideal leader or archetype is a philosopher king because they're smart, they're educated, and they know how to lead the people safely. Now, Solon, the father of democracy, the man who invented the democracy that he discovered it because it's nature's democracy, is the one who created the judicial system, the legislative system, and the assembly. There was no executive branch. That's actually oligarchy that was invented by Rome to supplant the assembly in the year 1776. So Solon, who is an ancient Greek philosopher back in the 600 BCE, he worked with Plato or with Pythagoras. He came up with democracy as the ancient Greeks used it with those 3 branches. And then he retired because he didn't want to. He very much believed in, I invented the system, I discovered the system, I shouldn't touch the system because you don't want one person to have that much power. So he developed that system, passed it over to the philosophers and left. Now, right after Solon did that, that's when Pythagoras and Plato and Aristotle continued to embellish on what Solon transferred over. It was gorgeous. It was a beautiful program. And for 200 years, oh my God, ancient Greece was amazing. Now, while that was going on, Rome was absolutely also trying to take over. Now, it was around that time that Aristotle came up with the concept of oligarchy and aristocracy. Aristocracy was named after Aristotle, based off of Solon's work and Plato's work, the Republic, which was the philosopher king. So you had Solon's democracy come out. You had Plato's The Republic come out with the philosopher king and the idea of you need a leader who's the smartest so we don't all run off the cliff like a bunch of lemmings. And you had Aristotle, who wrote The Oligarchy, about how this is people who rule wealth. These are people who we all are getting a very great example of what oligarchy looks like right now. I think we all know what oligarchy is. And he opposed it with another concept called aristocracy. Now, this is where Aristotle messed up. He said, ruled by the best. When you say ruled by the best, that's a really sloppy definition. So, of course, all the oligarchs jumped in with their line pushers and said, well, I'm the best. Well, I'm the best. And they started arguing over who the best is. But with Solon's work and the Republic and Aristotle with aristocracy, the best was already defined by philosophers of Greece. The best is the person who has completed the Olympic Games to get the Olympic torch for the passing of the torch in the hierarchy, which is why you are crowned the Kotinos for your wisdom. So that is the archetype, which was already defined by Socrates. Now, Rome didn't like any of this because that meant that the oligarchs couldn't be in charge. So they declared a war on education, philosophy, and they had Socrates executed with the accusation that he was pushing for the philosopher king. That was their excuse for executing Socrates. Now, that was in 380 BCE, 320, about 60 years later. That's when Alexander the Ass decided to, completely imperialize all the neighboring countries, secure Rome for the Roman Empire, and transfer it over. So that launched the war on education. That's when the hierarchy was taken out, the patriarchy was supplanted. So now here we are 2,000 years later, and that expiration date is up. It's all coming down because lies cannot last beyond a certain time period. As soon as that clock hits, it all comes down. Now, whatever we build, we have two options. If we build in accordance to the clock, oh, it'll be immortal. It'll be 100% immortal. It'll be awesome. If you don't build in compliance with the clock, it'll fall in another 2,000 years if you know how to keep it going. Here's the problem. It's basically an Apple computer Microsoft situation where someone stole something that doesn't belong to them, and all they can do is copycat because they really don't know how it works. Which is why Elon Musk built Doge, is because he's looking for it. He's looking to figure out exactly how they did it, what they did, so he can and they can build it and put it back. I have other plans. My plan is to show you how they did it, what they're doing, and how it works. That way you can break the code that's in your head. Basically, it's messing around with the math in your head using the Boolean table. That's all it is. And when you mess around with the math in your head with the Boolean, it messes up it's kind of like a blockchain. It's exactly like a blockchain. You have a blockchain in your head. Your blockchain is determined and built by the Boolean table. So the Boolean math, that's your 1, 2, true, false. Is it rejected? It's basically your autoimmune disease. It's a mental autoimmune equivalent. So if your immune system, which is your subconscious mind, is working properly, it will accept the truths as true and reject the falses as false. But abusers know how to change your Boolean cube or why do I keep calling it a Boolean cube? They keep changing your Boolean math. When they change your Boolean math, it starts allowing lies to come in, and that changes your blockchain. When it changes your blockchain, that's when it completely disrupts the entire circuit inside your mind. When it disrupts the circuit in your mind rewires itself to access a different code. We know exactly what math to use to change whatever code needs to be changed inside of your mind. That allows us to literally take out whatever mind we want and drop it into anything we want. All you have to do is know the math code and just match up the math. So what they did was they literally matched up. This is what the Roman Empire did during the Council of Nicaea. This is what they did for 60 years was they built this. They took Magian and then they used the Judaism and Christian religion to compose this math with the Magian they had stolen, except they don't know how it works. And they just copycatted it at that time. So what they did was they ended up creating a false vector, which is your criminal vector. That's where all the criminal lying is now built on, because you cannot build criminal shit in the nature's vector. You can't do it. You cannot build lies in nature's vector. Cannot be done. They're not compatible logical codes. That's like trying to build Java in C++. You can't do it. That's like trying to put HTML inside C++. You can't do it. So as a result, you have two different logical codes. So they ended up building, I don't know how I would be able to do this without the modern era. I think this is why Christ had such a hard time trying to explain it to everybody, is because it was 2,000 years ago and it's a mess, I get it. So basically I'm in the nature's vector. So whatever you build inside nature's vector must be compatible with nature's code or it won't work. And anything that's built inside the criminal vector has to align with their math rules. Only they're using criminal math, criminal science, broken math, broken science. And that fits very nicely over there, but it doesn't fit over here with nature's vector. So that's pretty much what's going on. Now, as theirs all crumbling, you're going to have no choice but to come over to nature's vector. But it's a completely different set of rules over here. Completely different set of rules. The calendar isn't even compatible. The calendar isn't even compatible. The calendar had to be, your clocks don't work over here. And that's part of the problem, is the entire system is incompatible. So people are going to have to start converting their businesses over to nature's vector, and their entire moral code is going to have to be rewritten. They're going to have to transfer everything over. And if you don't, it burns and it's burning. It's going down. It's going down. So, yeah, what they're looking to do is learn how to read it so they can re-break it, but you can't re-break it. It's not possible to be rebroken. It's not possible to be rebroken. You cannot, game over. It's all done. So that's pretty much what's going on. Now, when an abuser comes in to abuse you, what they're really doing is they are taking a miniature copycat version of all of this, and they're doing it one-on-one with you. What's going on is got passed down, got generational trauma. So person A who had this code did it to person B copied it, not understanding it, and then they did it to somebody else. Person C copied it from person B. So here we are 2,000 years down the phone line, and everyone's just copying this very toxic code, passing it from one subconscious mind behavior to the other, and it's brainwashing. It is absolute brainwashing. So it's being passed through a brainwashing program without people's awareness to it, and because they're compatible inside the code. So if you're successful and you're making money inside of the criminal code, well, it's because you're doing criminal practices. And this is where there's a lot of how ethical are you really? This is really what it comes down to is this is going to be a divide. There's going to be 4 stages of this divide. I've already got this grouped. It's amazing grouping. The first group is going to be, I want to be ethical, and they're going to jump right over here. Those are my bridge walkers. I call those my bridge walkers. They're going to be here fast. They're the people who are like, I prioritize ethics above all. That's your first wave. The second wave are going to be the people who are ethical, but they're also going to be, okay, what do I need to do? I want to prepare for this. I've got children. That's where you're going to see that group. I was part of group 1. I was like, oh, I want ethical. And I jumped. There was no bridge build. I swam the moat. I swam the moat. Yeah, that was me. I swam the moat. So after I got here, I built a bridge. Now there's the bridge. That's the rainbow bridge. And then there's going to be bridge walkers. The next wave, the second wave, this is going to be people who prepare and then make the transfer over. They're going to be like your stage 2 bridge walkers. Now, the third one, and this is where things are going to get really slimy, and we're going to change the way we do things. The third wave are going to be people who go, all right, well, I guess I'll go and be ethical now, but only because I was pressured to do so. I don't want to work those with people. No, I don't want to work with those, but they're going to come over. They're going to come over, but there's going to be like a certain point where they're going to become rats on a drowning ship. That's what it is. Really, it's going to be rats on a drowning ship. When that vector drops and they're going to realize, oh, they don't have a choice but to come over. They're only going to come over when they have no choice. Now we're going to get to know who's ethical and who isn't. Isn't that wonderful how nature just sorts people like that? The fourth wave is going to be the people who will not, do not, absolutely won't. Even if it's profitable, they won't come over. Yeah, they're coming. And we'll know exactly when they are. So as people start to cross over from that criminal vector over to the nature's vector, we're going to see who it is exactly. I've already got the filtration process in set. So basically, it's a sign-up sheet. It's free. It's a sign-up sheet. That way, you know who's ethical to do business, ethical business practices. And when the third and fourth wave comes over and you know, okay, they're not ethical, we don't want to do business with them, you will know exactly who they are, and they're going to get that list. So if you're a third wave arriver, you're going to get the third wave list. If you're a second wave, you're going to get the second wave list. And if you're a first wave, you're going to get the first wave list. Even Steven, pretty cool karma. So that's where we're at with the vectors, with Magian, with all of it. There's a lot more here. Like I said, this was a huge door that I opened up, and it's so huge that I got back on YouTube. I've not been on YouTube in a long time. And when this came out, I was just like, I gotta talk. I gotta talk because this is insanely huge. So that's it right there. I'm gonna go ahead, wrap this up, and I will keep you posted. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.